Hi, Jim Cantelon here. Welcome to JCT. This beautiful aroma is enveloped me. This is a bag of coffee from Equator Coffee. The founder of Equator Coffee, Craig Hall, is my guest today. And he's a remarkable young entrepreneur. He studied international development at university. And in the process of getting that degree, learned about small-scale coffee bean farmers in various parts of the Southern Hemisphere who are just trying to make ends meet and being basically almost forced into a kind of a slavery by the major coffee corporations out there, treating them as if they were nothing. And so this little group of Christian entrepreneurs got together and started working together as a cooperative to buy coffee beans from these small farmers at a just price. Well, the story's thrilling. You're going to enjoy it, so hang in there. I'll be back with Craig Hall right after this.
Very few African mothers ever see a doctor or midwife, yet each mother knows how fragile her child's life is. You see, 26,000 children under the age of 5 will die today because they don't have access to medical care. Your gift of $260, just $22 every month, helps stock a mobile clinic and train healthcare workers to care for young mothers and their children during pregnancy and preschool years. Join WOW Mother Care now. Protect the life of a mother and her child.
As I mentioned off the top, I have Craig Hall with me, and Amber will be joining us as well, his wife. Fair trade entrepreneurs. They created something called Equator Coffee, and my wife and I know it very well because, Craig, we drink your coffee every morning. In fact, I dare say I have a hard time imagining starting a day without your coffee. Does that sound like maybe I'm an addict?
Probably.
Oh, really? So
like that,
I need to back off a bit.
Everything in moderation.
Everything in moderation.
Yeah.
You took an international development degree from Trent University years ago, and it was there that you learned about small-scale farmers in the coffee industry. Why was it that the plight of these small-scale farmers appealed to you suddenly?
Well, it really is a north-south type of issue where you have southern people who are poor and northern people that are rich, and bridging that gap. So for me, it was seeing something entrepreneurial, which I really enjoy entrepreneurism and starting stuff. And so I saw this opportunity where the Canadian market could basically bridge a gap that was a very real problem for these small-scale farmers.
And how did you start? I mean, it's fine to have this, this idealistic vision to help small-scale farmers in the Southern Hemisphere, but how did you begin?
That's a good question. I mean, I had help. I began with an idea and a business plan and evaluation and using, some of the skills I had in research to find an opportunity. But there was some actual real help that people offered me and finance, and I bought our first small roaster, 10-kilo roaster, and started roasting coffee. And then it was learning business after that.
And how did you develop your clientele? I mean, full disclosure, we're related by marriage, and so we were a no-brainer, right? We heard about it real quick. But how did you develop your clientele?
Yeah, so we started in a small town in the Ottawa Valley in Arnprior, and we started there because we knew we needed access to a larger market in Ottawa. So, and that was a home market for us. Right. So I just went knocking on doors,
kidding.
Cold calling is how we started.
And what would you say to somebody who opened the door? Hi, I'm Craig Hall, and I want to sell you some coffee?
Yeah, we have fair trade, organic, freshly roasted coffee, locally roasted, and would you like to try it? And that was a whole other range of skills that I had to learn about sales and about business and communication and marketing.
Out of 10 doors, how many would open to you, or at least give you a listening ear?
Yeah, well, I learned that some of them weren't going to open, so I stopped going to some doors.
Right.
But there was a lot of asking. There's a lot of footwork, and to get clients, it's sometimes you have to target them and then find a way in the door. So.
Is it true that coffee is the number one drink in the world, other than water?
Yes, you're correct. It is.
Yeah, well, I'm amazed wherever I travel in the world. Everybody's drinking coffee now. Look, let's take a look at this here. This is green beans.
Yeah, green coffee.
Green coffee, and this is the kind of stuff that I get from you every 6 weeks or so, and put into a roaster. When I tell people that we're roasting our own coffee, they look at us as though we are members of some cult,
Yeah.
some group of elites. Are most of your customers roasting their own?
No, actually, you are on the leading edge.
Oh.
Yeah, and actually you have been for years.
Well, we started almost immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of our important factors in our business is freshly roasting. So we actually haven't tried to go in a really large distribution because fresh coffee tastes better. So what you've discovered is that when you roast it yourself and drink it within a couple of days, it's an amazing product. And we know that as well. So we're trying to roast and deliver to our clients weekly. So that's how we do our business.
Now, coffee beans, again, and this is something I'm not used to seeing because it never comes to me this way, start out this way.
Yeah.
And that sort of blonde exterior is the outer husk?
Yes, parchment. That is actually a second stage of coffee. I mean, many people wouldn't know that coffee is actually a cherry on the tree, and it has 2 seeds inside, which we call beans, but they're actually the split half of a seed in a cherry. So that's what coffee is like on the tree. And that product that you just showed, the parchment coffee, in Central America, it's called oro.
Oro.
Which means gold.
Oh, now here's the husks after the roasting, right? Now I'm really used to this because whenever I roast the coffee, I have to go outside and blow this stuff away.
Yeah.
But that's what comes off once the roasting procedure is done, right?
Yeah, that's chaff that comes off the green coffee.
Chaff.
And it's great for your garden. We give it away to gardeners from our roasting facility.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, now let's move on here. You're dealing now with small farmers, coffee farmers all over the world, right?
Yes.
You were recently in Ethiopia. Ethiopia claims to be the
birthplace
of coffee, right?
Yeah.
And they do have an ancient coffee ceremony. I've been there a few times, and that's part of their welcoming, right?
Yeah, they do.
For our viewers, describe what you found when you started doing this. I mean, these small farmers, really small, really poor?
Really small, really poor. I actually had a great experience in Ethiopia. I went to a co-op that was just the first day they were bringing in coffee cherries. So the way that would look is that it's almost like a carnival atmosphere. The kids are running around, everyone's excited, because this is an opportunity for the people to get cash. So the period between harvests is a hungry period.
So this is a cash crop for them?
It is a cash crop. Yeah, it's really important. So there was like this excitement, and people were bringing in bags of cherries, and what will happen is the co-op has a wash station where they're preparing the cherries. They do a few steps to the process to get the green coffee dry, but they bring in the cherries and they weigh each amount that the farmer brings in and give that a little slip of paper to the farmer. And this is also not a gender issue in most co-ops around the world. Women can participate fully, and kids, they bring in their bag of cherries, and everyone's excited to watch the scale to see how much weight is in that, even if it's a few kilos, because they get a written up little receipt, and they can take that to get cash. I mean, it's the first cash they've had in a while. So the community's really excited about it, and it was great to be there that day. It was really fun.
And do you and or your buyers arrive on site with money in your pockets? Is that how that works?
No, but it's a good question. Part of fair trade purchasing is to try to provide some pre-harvest financing. And that's important to the community and to the co-op because people need cash. So the co-op needs to be able to pay them something as they bring their cherries in. Or those people will go where the cash is. So for the co-op to function properly, they need to bring in the coffee that they can sell. So we provide pre-harvest financing that allows the co-op to pay some cash out, but they usually have a second payment after the container or product is sold.
How, this is a cooperative, that cooperative coffees it's called. How many people like you would cooperative coffees be representing,
Right.
during that purchase process?
Right. So Cooperative Coffees is a group of roasters in North America that buy coffee together. So there's about 23 roasters that purchase together. So we have our own staff that will visit all the farms and negotiate contracts and work with the farmers. So in Ethiopia, I was with one of our staff people that works regularly in Africa.
Is there ever a moment when there is competition between these?
That's a good question. Yes.
You're purportedly a cooperative, but I'm sure that, everybody's looking out to make a buck, right?
Yeah, when territories overlap, there can be a little bit of conflict. But we have it's written into our policies that we won't try to take from other members' business. There's a lot of coffee on the market, and we can usually find someone else to displace versus one of our co-op members.
Right. Now, how does the big coffee conglomerates out there, the big coffee companies, how do they see you? Do they see you as an interloper? Do they see you as a pest?
Well, they don't understand really, because coffee is such an old established industry. There's a lot of money in it. It's huge, right? It's bigger than oil.
Really?
So actually, it's the second largest. Oil is the largest industry, commodity industry, and then coffee's right behind it. So it's huge, is what I'm saying. It's gigantic. So.
Whoa.
Yeah. So for us as Co-op Coffees, as a green bean buyer, we're very small, and the way we do business is very different. We leave our contracts open for the co-op in the South to set when the price will be set, and there's some things we do that nobody else really does.
Now, I know that you are a believer in Jesus. You are a committed Christian. Yeah. And this is not a religious business, but you really see this as a part of your sort of justice-seeking mandate as a believer, right? To be reaching out and helping the poor.
Absolutely, it's been a motivation of mine from the beginning. And the important thing here is that we need to pay attention as North Americans how we're spending our money, because it impacts people.
Yeah. Okay. Well, somewhere down the line, we're going to be talking to your better half, because without her, you wouldn't have a business, right?
True, she's amazing.
You're the
she's
dreamer.
Very helpful.
You're the dreamer, she's the implementer. Well, somewhere down the line, we'll be talking to your wife, Amber. But it's called Equator Coffee, Fair Trade Entrepreneurs, Craig and Amber Hall. Thanks so much for coming our way, Craig.
Thanks, Jim.
We'll be back with more right after this.
This is a Voice of the Martyrs Canada news update, a special report.
More than 200,000 Syrians have lost their lives in 4+ years of armed conflict. About a quarter of them were Christians. Prior to the uprising and then the war, there were about 3 million Christians in the country. About half of them have left, and most of the rest want to leave as well.
It breaks my heart to see what is happening to my nation with all the terrorism and the violence among the people.
If you would have come to Syria before, you would have seen how it was full of churches and beautiful Christian places, and now it's all gone. It's all destroyed.
Amani was encouraged by the concern and support of the Voice of the Martyrs Canada, but is pleading with Christians everywhere to continue to pray.
For more information, visit www.vomcanada.com.
We're going to read a section here in John 16 about the disciples' inability to understand or process what Jesus is saying. And before I read it to you, or read it with you, just a comment. We have no indication that the disciples were especially well educated. They were from Nazareth, or I should say from, not just Nazareth, they're from the Upper Galilee. And as Galileans, they were seen by the general populace, at least in the urban areas like Jerusalem, as rustics. They were kind of the rough-hewn, blue-collar workers who had not had opportunity in their lives for any special refinement by way of education. It's very possible that some of them couldn't even read or write. We don't know. Now, we know that John could write, certainly. We know that Matthew could write, certainly. We know that Matthew, John, Peter was a brilliant writer, which actually is quite surprising because he was a fisherman, and you would think that he would not have had opportunity to have learned his letters. And yet, when you read 1st and 2nd Peter, my goodness, it's an amazing literary work, to say nothing of very inspired and challenging. But we don't really know, nor does the Bible emphasize their sophistication or their intellectual capacities, any more than we should know or assume that the masses to whom Jesus ministered were especially literate or lettered. People swarmed around Jesus because of his works, because of the miraculous healings, the occasional raising of people from the dead. In some cases, you get the impression they tolerated his teaching, but they certainly couldn't get enough of the signs and wonders aspect of his ministry. As you follow him through those 3 years of ministry, you don't see many of them making any kind of profound confession of understanding who Jesus is. In fact, some of the clearest declarations of who Jesus is come from evil spirits that Jesus is casting out of people. And they say, stay away from me. We know who you are, please, deal with us gently, Let us go to that herd of pigs over there, please. It's interesting that the evil spirits fully understood that he was a son of God. But, even his own, not necessarily his family, but his friends and neighbors in Nazareth, at one point were trying to push him over a cliff. So the fact that he should have difficulty communicating these words to the disciples should not surprise us. And remember the setting. They're having this meal. Jesus has already made these uncomfortable comments about Peter denying him. And then he and Judas have had a kind of a private tete-a-tete, and Judas has snuck out into the dark. John says they thought maybe he was going to give alms to the poor or to do something that related to his business as treasurer. But it's confusing, unsettling. And then he's making all this talk about leaving them and not going to leave you orphans and let not your hearts be troubled. And then he's brought this new person into the mix that they can't even see. They've never met. He's called the Advocate, another helper who Jesus is going to send in his own name. And it was all too much. And then he's talking about in a little while, things will be clear to you. So we pick it up in verse 17. Some of the disciples said to one another, what does he mean by saying, in a little while you'll see me no more, and then after a little while you will see me? I mean, is he taking a break? Is he going on a sabbatical? Is he going to have a holiday? What's happening here? And because I'm going to the Father, is he kind of going to, take an escalator to heaven for a period of time? Kind of like Jacob's ladder, and then come back to us? And they kept asking, what does he mean by a little while? We don't understand what he's saying. So this conversation is going on in the context of that meal. So, this was not a monologue on Jesus' part. There was lots of interruptions, lots of chatter, lots of confused disciples asking questions of one another. And Jesus saw that they wanted to ask him about this. So I said to them, are you asking one another what I meant when I said, in a little while you'll see me no more, and then after a little while you'll see me? Now, if you were Jesus, or if I were Jesus, you'd give a clear-cut explanation. He doesn't do that. He was so Middle Eastern in his teaching method. He You know, Middle Eastern teaching is full of conundrum, full of riddles, full of double entendres, full of potential rabbit trails, you know, to kind of put the student off of the scent of the real central truth to be taught. And why that's the case, I don't understand, except that in pursuing all the rabbit trails and in dialoguing about all the various options, students, and in the Middle East, it's always two who learn together, never one at a time, but two who learn together, and they kind of iron sharpening iron. You see, to this day, Bible students in the yeshivot, or the Bible colleges of Judaism in Israel, and you go into that yeshiva, and it looks like all these pairs, these couples of guys are fighting each other. But what they're doing is they're arguing little fine points of truth, all right? But that Middle Eastern didactic method ultimately leads to a sure and a certain and a solid resolution. And sometimes it takes years to get there, but eventually you get there, right? So Jesus, you know, he was a typical Middle Eastern teacher. He was a rabbi for sure in that sense. He says, look, you will weep and mourn while the world rejoices. You will grieve, but your grief will be turned to joy. That's not a very satisfying answer. Of course, what he's talking about is that, yeah, in a few hours, they're going to come and get me. And down there in the Garden of Gethsemane, you know, it'll be made clear to you what's going on here. They're going to take me before the high priest's father-in-law, and then the high priest himself, and then they're going to take me to Pilate, and Pilate's going to send me over to Herod, and Herod's going to send me back to Pilate, and this is going to take up the whole night. You're going to be sleepless, and in the early morning, you're going to see me lacerated, you know, and with a bloodied, ripped, shredded back. You're going to see a crown of thorns on my head. You're going to see this mockery, this shouting and this spitting. You're going to see me stumbling under the weight of the cross. Excuse me. You're going to see me going to Golgotha. You're going to see me crucified, and you're going to see me die. Now, that's really what he's saying. And you will mourn while the world rejoices. Aha! We finally got him. You know, we knew we'd get this guy eventually. We got him. We got him. You'll grieve, but your grief will be turned to joy. Well, they couldn't foresee what was about to happen, but that's exactly what happened. In the morning of the resurrection, depending on which of the Gospels you're reading, 1, 2, 3 women, they go to the empty grave, thinking they're going to anoint the body of Jesus, and he's not there. They go running back to the disciples, and Peter and young John race back to the site of the burial, and sure enough, Jesus is gone. What is going on? He says, look, verse 21, a woman giving birth to a child is pained because her time has come. But when her baby is born, she forgets the anguish because of her joy that a child is born into the world. And so with you. Now is your time of grief, but I will see you again, and you will rejoice, and no one will take away your joy. Most women who've given birth will look at their husbands and say, you have no idea. I guess there's no pain like it. It truly is a pain that's close unto death. And yet when the pain is over and the baby is born, the pain is very quickly forgotten in the joy of this new birth. I was at the birth of our 3 kids years ago, and I remember when our firstborn was born, Todd, the nurse wept. And she told me afterwards she'd seen thousands of births. She said, Jim, I can never get used to it. The miracle of birth, in spite of the pain, the suffering. Jesus is saying, you're going to go through this. Hang in there. You need to understand that before the birth comes the labor pains. And then the final push, and the baby is born, and all the pain is forgotten, and the joy of the new birth overcomes and overshadows all that has preceded it. Now is your time of grief, but I will see you again. I will see you again. Now, we're not in the position of the disciples in that we have physically walked and talked with Jesus for 3 years. We've done so by faith. And even as we go through this study, it's kind of like we're putting ourselves almost in their place. And we can sing, you know, with the songwriter, he walks with me and he talks with me and he tells me I'm his own. And we can talk about that personal relationship, and it means a lot to us. And we're absolutely correct when we talk about that being a personal relationship. But the day is coming, friends, when we will see him as he is. And this is the great hope of the church. The day is coming, and it's not far away, when we will see him face to face. And at that point in time, any grief, any sorrow, any of the struggle, the deep questions, the difficulties of being a man or woman of faith will yield and be forgotten as the kingdom of heaven is born. That's the hope of the church, and that should encourage you today.
Very few African mothers ever see a doctor or midwife, yet each mother knows how fragile her child's life is. You see, 26,000 children under the age of 5 will die today because they don't have access to medical care. Your gift of $260, just $22 every month, helps stock a mobile clinic and train healthcare workers to care for young mothers and their children during pregnancy and preschool years. Join WOW Mother Care now. Protect the life of a mother and her child.
You know, I try every show to learn something I didn't know before, and I don't always succeed, but I certainly did today. I knew that coffee was the #1 drink in the world. I guess that's a no-brainer. We all know that. What I didn't know is that the coffee industry is second only to the oil industry. I mean, who knew that? And yet, when you think about it, coffee is drunk, you know, in the hundreds of millions, maybe billions of cups every day. And that's certainly got to add up. Isn't it thrilling to know that there is this small group of Christian entrepreneurs who have gathered together to give coffee growers a just and a fair price, fair trade, as they call it. That to me is such a practical way of demonstrating the love of God for the world. It's only one aspect of it, but it's terrific. And for those of you who drink fair trade coffee, I can hardly wait till the show's over because I can have some too. I'm Jim Cantelon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Contact us. Jim Cantelon today. P.O. Box 989, Burlington, Ontario, L7R 3Y7. If you're sending a check, make it payable to Jim Cantelon today. Or visit us online at jimcantelontoday.com and click support.